7 years ago, an incident in Sweden made global headlines on Swedish national television. During a news broadcast, she omitted Taiwan entirely from the map and altered China's map. Even mislabeling Tibet struck at the heart of China's core interests. Manel show host Ron brazenly twisting the facts, launching into hostile, insulting attacks on Chinese citizens, stirring up the Swedish public, fueling anger and hostility toward China, and beyond, even though the embassy's spokesperson in Sweden at the time assumed a firm condemnation and lodged a strong protest. The Swedish side is still, in the name of humor, avoid false statements. Even with an apology, there is no seriousness or sincerity at Alpha, strong accountability at the Chinese Ministry of Foreign Affairs in a joint protest with all overseas Chinese. Those involved were held accountable and dismissive due punishment. And just a year after the Ruhwa incident, Swedish national organization Macka Statistik came up with 85% of respondents have the conclusion of disgust. All lingering emotions. No wonder even CCTV later said bluntly in the comments, Swedish TV broadcasts was video no disguise extreme rewards and insults. It is rare in European, American and other country-ish. Small Nordic country of Sweden, is it so prosperous? I'm exploring why Sweden is protecting China for holding such a strong dislike. You also should review the history of intersection between the two. Contra Sweden in the age of the European enlagtunti can say you are a fan of Chinese culture. The whole country is full of curiosity and yearning in the ancient Oriental kingdom. Therefore, in the 10th year of Yongzhenga merchant ship named the Frederick, the head of the Swedish East India Company, next trade voyage with Chinese waves have arrived in Guangzhou. The ship was loaded with about 110,000 Spanish silver dollars, with Sweden breaking the Dutch and British monopoly on Eastern trade. Ambition is on the risk journey of direct trade between China and Switzerland. It's not an exaggeration to say that because the Frederick was designed to protect against pirates, there are even cannons on board, guns and professional officers. It can be seen that he attaches great importance to the first voyage. After arriving in Guangzhou, they found Chen Dingguan, a Fujian-level merchant. Chinese served as a treasure merchant, assisting Swedish business people to connect with the government and complete the trade process. It's a cliché. The Swedish's shopping list is still based on tea leaves, mainly porcelain and silk, but unlike in the past, Sweden in a rare move. The business person made a strategy of shopping around while completing the purchase. There are also a number of foreign goods houses that have signed contracts laying the foundation for future long-term trade. The successful voyage of the Frederick marks the official accession of Sweden's trade system with China. In the 18th century, they used silver to buy Chinese goods. Directly model it also became a typical operation over open merchant ships at that time, but due to the lack of export commodities suitable for the Chinese market, Sweden's trade with China have a serious deficit for a long time. This led to a massive silver outflow from Sweden, but fortunately, these products purchased from China has also accumulated a rich source of raw capital for Sweden of an ocean trade, has indirectly promoted the prosperity of the port of Gothenburg. Thoroughfares sent 129 expeditions, one after another, arrive in Guangzhou, and this particular historical context it also made Sweden the first country in Europe countries that are systematically exposed to Chinese culture and through trade gains and academic exchange formed a unique Chinese perception. In this context, concept of Chinese Confucian statecraft became Sweden, reference for the reform of enlightened dictators. The Swedish parliament introduced said freedom of speech in 1766. It's a direct reference to the Chinese model under the impetus of the Wang family, and Venerable Sweden at that time there was a China craze. Imitation and integration of Eastern art styles, it became a fad. China is just too European model of Chinese original artists, a typical reaction to this social atmosphere. 1866 King Dynasty envoy Zhang Dai visits China's public history. They even documented Fahrenheit architecture and vast artifacts. Coexisting historical realities become a precious witness to the early exchanges between China and Switzerland, but the admiration for China goes so far that's not necessarily a good thing. After all, things get extreme. There is bound to be a reversal one. The authority of the King of Sweden, but it requires the help of Chinese civilization style is expressed their yearning. For Eastern civilization it leads to greed. Swedish explorer and merchant who sailed to China already in their mail. As early as the 18th century, it's on the two-way nature of EU-China trade not only made it clear that China is against Whigs' demand for Western goods such as wine is rather limited. It is also discussed in detail by trade friction caused by cultural nuance, and when these after meeting the demand for colonial expansion stinks even more. The yellow race is now a code name for Asians, but at the beginning of its birth this word is full of rive arrogance of colonialism. Was fully expressed for the Chinese hands on this one. With the night color label, it was a famous Swedish scientist, Karaneth biologist known as the second Adam, following the example of Adam in the Bible, naming foreign objects allusions to the establishment of natural dominance are in the taxonomy of organisms. In his understanding, this is how God created Linnai to organize it. If his research only focuses on the level of the plastic discipline, System quite a remarkable contribution. But his research was accompanied by Europe's novelty of the age of great navigation, and the development of industrial civilization was doomed to his theory. It must have a side that serves colonial expansion did not necessarily create a natural system established if not taxonomized the people on Earth into 3, 6, 9 classes directly identify the noblest race Asuro 800. They also turned the Chinese into Asian yellow people. The worst smell Linnaeus describes the yellow race in Latin words full of irony and provocation. It is precisely because he made such a bad start that led to the Western world ridicule of the yellow race has intensified among Western countries. Systemic discriminatory discourse doctrine with chivalry. The context of colonial expansion led the European powers attributing the progress of science and technology to people kind of excellence, so as to stop worshipping China. Instead, it has moved to another stage of discuss Chinese king government. At this moment, it is also restricting the entry of Western goods into China. Western business people lost their opportunity to make money at the same time. The spread of Christianity in China was struggling. Missionaries were very upset. Westerners have a grudge against China's a result. The evaluation of the Chinese people continues to decline. This hidden discrimination against yellow people still exists. It's not gone. This shows that Swedes' harm to China started centuries ago. This hatched even more like a seed buried deep in the river of time. Just find the right moment. The spring breeze will blow again nowadays. Sweden is extremely anti-Chinese, the result of this resurgence of historical legacies, but Sweden today is a little different than it used to be. They no longer had to rely on scholars to construct their minds. As mentioned at the beginning, grew incident just by bombardment from all kinds of media now. To achieve the same effects, Swedish media G. Linnaeus in a new era for the people create a densely ventilated information in spenting and preventing on a loop of negative news slandering China. This is also why in their common understanding think that China is no different from the wilderness. Here we are. Their motivation is no longer just to get the type itself mixed in. By speaking ill of China transfer domestic conflicts and tertian the common people. The deeper consideration of anger over migration. Due to Sweden, they tend to be more active in accepting refugees. But Sweden's carrying capacity is limited. After all, this led to the Swedes' xenophobic sentiment. Is unprecedented domestic nationalism is also particularly dangerous. In this context, media needs to do everything possible to shift focus and the people of Shandong, China, thousands of miles apart. Is also innocent because of this the prosperous exchanges between the two countries brought about by ocean trader Minneapolis to sow the seeds of night-sparking Western anti-China have to. The evolution of Sweden's attitude toward China smells a little bit like love. And hated, of course, that's one of them. It had the hubris of early colonialism. And prejudice in Sweden need to shift social conflicts, but this means outside the soil and inside ultimately short-sighted after all. No matter how much Sweden devalues, the fact that China is on the rise will never change even. If this can quell the conflict, for you won't be able to hide your fentanyl structural problems. The smoke of history clearly Shion's voice should return. It only takes 3 centuries to hate, but only if Sweden looks at history. Reflect on yourself further than wallowing in prejudice and arrogance. This is based on false anti-Chinese sentiment over information and stereotypes. Fintly will only isolate Sweden on the international stage. Ultimately, it will definitely affect its own international imagined economic development.